Hi, I wanted to talk with you today about the National Defense Authorization Act. Every year, this is one of the most important tasks that Congress undertakes, which is making sure that we are authorizing programs that strengthen our national security and keep our military men and women safe. I wanted to introduce you to my legislative director, Brianna, who has helped me work on this bill, and we wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the amendments that we were able to make that will have a direct effect on families in the 45th District. Brianna, could you start by telling everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm from Laguna Hills, and before working for Congress, I worked for the Army. I deployed to Afghanistan as an advisor to General John Allen and General Joseph Dunford. I also worked on space policy for the Pentagon and Afghanistan, and I worked for the NATO Parliamentary Assembly.
Excellent. So as you can see, I was fortunate to have somebody who really knows a lot about different parts of the military and how to best support our troops. With the National Defense Authorization Act, part of the decision always is how much should we spend? Yeah. And in this case, my understanding is that the Secretary of Defense asked for $733 billion, and we met that request fully. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And can you talk a little bit about some of the particular amendments we worked on? I'm really excited about the one relating to treating burns.
So treating burns is incredibly important for our servicemen and women. For those serving in combat zones, it's one of the casualties you see from improvised explosive devices. Our men and women are often covered in burns over a significant portion of their body. So partnering with universities and trauma centers to make sure that our doctors in the military continue their training while they're back in the United States helps our men and women when they're deployed again. It also helps civilians get treated by doctors with that incredible expertise they've gained while on deployment.
And UC Irvine has a trauma center and a center of burn excellence for treating burns. And so what this amendment does that we authored is encourage the Department of Defense to create those partnerships between academic centers of excellence or medical centers of excellence like UCI and the Department of Defense. So this is really, as you said, an opportunity for both the academic center or the medical center and the Department of Defense to share information, ultimately producing better treatment for both military servicemen and women, but all of us who may suffer a burn injury. I also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that we worked on with regard to consumer protection and making sure that military families are being treated fairly in the marketplace. As a consumer advocate, one of the things I had studied over a period of years was that service members are often exploited. They're very often victims of predatory loans. They often have real struggles with facing discrimination or problems in obtaining housing. Can you tell everybody a little bit about some of the amendments that we were able to pass through the House that address these issues?
Military families live in both private housing and on military bases. And with private housing, we've seen reports in the past year of really serious issues. And the Congresswoman's amendment would make sure that those issues are investigated so that we can take them seriously and make sure they're fixed.
And no military family, whether they're living on a base or living in private housing, should be dealing with substandard conditions, unsafe or unsanitary or unhealthy conditions. And I'm really excited that this amendment passed the House, and I'm very excited to see it go into effect to make sure that our military families, not just the servicemen and women, but also their children, are living in housing that really reflects our values of taking care of our service members. Could you also say a little bit, I did a lot of work before I came to Congress on predatory lending, and one of the communities that we know that is most vulnerable, particularly to payday loans, is service members. Anyone who's visited a military base may have noticed that often ringing the base are a number of payday lenders, check cashing shops, other kinds of places that can charge very, very high interest rates. Can you talk a little bit about how our amendment makes sure that the protections that we had started down to enacting are now actually going to go into place?
So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau had a rule that makes sure that when a payday lender offers a loan, that someone has the ability to pay that loan back. It's very simple. So the Congresswoman's amendment would make sure that rule goes into effect almost immediately for servicemen and women, their families, veterans, and surviving spouses, instead of being delayed another year.
And I have to say, this problem has been one that we've seen for several years. This isn't a new problem. It's been well documented, including by many of our military leaders who are really concerned about the effect that predatory lending can have on military readiness. And so there's really no excuse. This is a well-known problem. We have a really good solution, as you said, making sure that the serviceman or woman or veteran can actually repay the loan that they're being offered. And so very hopeful that we see this actually take effect immediately, and proud to bring my expertise in consumer advocacy combined with Brianna's expertise in the issues facing the military to bear on this amendment.
And on that point, servicemen and women can actually lose their security clearances if they go into debt. Which can really affect our military readiness.
My brother served on a nuclear submarine for a number of years, and this was one of the issues as an officer that a lot of his enlisted men dealt with, was that they would sometimes have debt problems, they would get behind on their payments, and they would be very worried about losing that high level of clearance necessary to serve on a nuclear submarine. So this is an issue both of readiness, making sure that our service members are focused, but also on making sure that we are meeting the needs of the military to have troops that are qualified and are ready to go into the field. So we're very excited about the amendments we were able to offer. There's several more. We'd be happy to talk with anyone who reaches out to us about why we supported this bill and the kinds of things that we fought to make sure were included. As always, I made sure that I put the interests of the families of the 45th District and thought a lot about what our communities, including organizations like UCI, like our hospitals, what we can bring to make sure that we're doing right by our veterans and our service members.